House Speaker Nancy Pelosi met with Japan's Prime Minister and her Japanese counterpart as she and the delegation of U.S. lawmakers wrapped up their trip to Asia. The speaker has also responded to China's backlash following her trip to Taiwan. From Japan, House Speaker Pelosi responded to the Chinese Communist Party's aggressive reaction to her Taiwan visit days earlier.
They may try to keep Taiwan from visiting or participating in other places, but they will not isolate Taiwan by preventing us to travel there. We've had high-level visits, senators in the spring, a bipartisan way, continuing visits, and we will not allow them to isolate Taiwan. They are not doing our travel schedule.
These comments come as China announced they're sanctioning Pelosi for visiting Taiwan. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson announced the sanctions on Friday, calling Pelosi's visit to Taiwan an egregious provocation. China is continuing to send vessels through the Taiwan Strait and flying warplanes into its self-declared air defense zone. And some of those ballistic missiles targeted at Taiwan landed near Japan's waters. And reports now reveal that China also flew drones close to Japan today. This as House Speaker Pelosi met with Japan's Prime Minister in the morning local time. In a bilateral meeting with Japan's Speaker Hosoda and members of the National Diet, Speaker Pelosi underscored Japan's leadership role in the Asia-Pacific region. The speaker says security was central to their purpose in visiting the region. And the Chinese regime has now announced it is cutting off all dialogue with the U.S. on major issues, including climate cooperation. The White House has summoned China's ambassador to the U.S. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby told the Washington Post, quote, "After China's actions overnight, we summoned Ambassador Qin Gang to the White House to demarche him about the PRC's provocative actions." Kirby also said that the Chinese regime's actions are irresponsible and at odds with maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. The National Guard will not be helping D.C. with the influx of illegal immigrants. The Pentagon denied Mayor Muriel Bowser's request. She was seeking 150 National Guard troops to help deal with the influx of illegal immigrants into Washington, D.C. According to Pentagon officials, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin declined to provide Guard personnel and the use of the D.C. Armory. One official said that FEMA's food and shelter program has provided funding for the problem and that those funds are sufficient. According to Texas Governor Greg Abbott's office, buses have transported more than 6,100 illegal immigrants to D.C. so far. 2 people have died and 2 others injured in D.C. after a lightning strike. The lightning struck down across from the White House. It happened yesterday evening during a thunderstorm. A couple in their late 70s was visiting Washington, D.C. from Wisconsin, and they took shelter under a tree before being injured by the lightning. They died in a hospital overnight. 2 others are still in the hospital. Officers with the Secret Service and the U.S. Park Police witnessed the lightning strike and ran over to help. Emergency medical crews were called to the scene just before 7 p.m., according to a fire department spokesman. The 4 victims were taken to the hospital with critical, life-threatening injuries, where 2 of them died. It's not yet known exactly how the 4 people were injured by the lightning. Public schools across the nation continue to push gender transition ideology, some even allowing young students to take steps towards changing their biological genders, even without parents' consent or their basic knowledge of what's going on with their child. This phenomenon creates a wedge between parents and their children, and teachers are also required to follow these policies, even if it conflicts with their moral beliefs. But one attorney explains to us there are legal protections for parents, teachers, and kids. Tyson Langhoffer successfully won a case protecting teachers' rights in Loudoun County. Here's our discussion. So we're here with Tyson Langhofer, who is the director of Center for Academic Freedom. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Now I want to talk to you about the K through 12 education system. So you were saying you are working on the protecting constitutional rights for the parents, especially we're seeing the idea of transgenderism and not students being able to transition themselves while at school and keeping that information from the parents. Can you just explain a little bit about the work you're doing with the K through 12 organization?
Sure. Over the last couple of years, we've seen an explosion of policies adopted by schools which say that if a student asks a teacher to refer to them by a new name or a new pronoun, they are to immediately do that. And not only immediately do it, but they are to hide that information from the parents unless the students specifically grant permission to tell them. And so teachers are being told that they must use the legal name and pronoun for the student when talking to the parent, but they must use the preferred name and pronoun when at school. And so they're deceiving the parents. And what's really unfortunate is most of these children also have other comorbid disorders like anxiety and depression and other things that they're going through, and their parents aren't being told about it, and they have no ability to help them. And these schools are really, they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth, because they'll have a policy that says parents are full partners in education, and then they'll hide this really important information from them, and they'll force teachers to lie to them. And so we've challenged these policies across the country. We just won a lawsuit in Kansas, rural Kansas, where I'm from, had a policy that forced teachers to lie to parents, and they suspended a teacher for referring to a student by their last name of the student, legal last name, but wanted them to lie to the parents. And we had to file a lawsuit to challenge that policy, and a federal judge enjoined the policy and said, no, you cannot lie to parents. Parents have a right to know if their child is, how their child is being referred to at school.
Okay, so I want to ask you about how does this actually manifest in the legal realm of things? What legal precedent is there to protect parents and students from this trend that we're seeing? I know you were saying that there's nothing directly written in the Constitution, but there's many precedent or rulings that have come out of the Supreme Court. Can you explain a little bit to our audience about that?
Sure. When you're dealing with this, we kind of bring this from multiple angles. One is the teachers' rights angle, because they're being forced to speak messages they disagree with. They're being forced to refer to a boy as a girl. They're being forced to lie to parents. So that would be a First Amendment claim on behalf of the teacher, and that violates their rights under the policy. But parents have the right to direct the upbringing of their children. That's a long-held precedent established by the United States Supreme Court in multiple different angles, saying that, look, the primary individuals in our society that are to make decisions regarding minor children are their parents. And that's a vast, big, broad right, and it's being infringed upon when you have schools that are attempting to force children to participate in things that the parents would disagree with, and they're hiding that information from them. And that's a substantive right under the 14th Amendment, the right to liberty and the right to direct the upbringing of your children.
It's interesting to me, the fact that this can be so widespread, even considering that the Supreme Court has ruled in this way, there is precedent to protect these rights, but yet this situation is still so widespread. Is it because the parents are not stepping up to the plate, or is it because there's a fear, do you think? Why did it become so widespread? Why are people not?
Yeah, what I find is, I think that there's a lot of outside pressure from outside advocacy organizations which are coming in and telling schools that if you don't adopt this policy, you're going to get sued or you're going to lose federal funds. That's one. That's how you get in rural Kansas, where you would think that it's more conservative, this type of policy. So you have these outside organizations pouring millions of dollars into school boards across the country trying to get them to adopt bad policies. The second thing is that parents have been kind of asleep at the wheel. We haven't done our job. But what we're finding is that we're waking up. And the good news is I live in Loudoun County. Loudoun County has been the epicenter of that. And we've seen that the parents have risen up. And they came to the defense of Tanner Cross after he was suspended for speaking out at a board meeting, and we got him reinstated. And what we found is that galvanized these parents, and that changed the election. We saw, a sweep of the statewide races from the governor to the lieutenant governor and the AG, all because of parental rights. And so that should encourage us. Yes, there's problems, but we can solve those problems at the local level if we're just willing to get involved. So I would encourage all parents, know what's going on at school, get involved, and speak up. If you don't agree, speak up. And then if you can't get a good ruling, run for the school board. Our children are worth it. They're the next generation. We need to protect these freedoms for them if we want them to have the same freedoms we had ourselves.
Thank you so much for your time, Tyson.
Thank you.